Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of the Road to FIDE Master series. This is the episode number 71 in which I will cover the round number 7 from the Polish First League. After an amazing win in the previous round with black pieces, this time I had also a very tough opponent of a FIDE Master rated over 2300, even though he's an adult player, so you would expect of him to be more of a classical game player, not an online one. He is actually a known guy in the online, at least Polish world, for being a tough opponent there. So I knew that I have to expect a tough battle anyway. And thankfully, though, his opening choices were not that sharp. However, there were plenty of them. So I didn't really know what to expect after e4 move. Therefore, I decided to play d4. And after d4, to my surprise, yet again on the move number 1 for like fourth time this tournament, my opponent surprised me. But you cannot actually expect such a surprise because he played move e6. You know, it's not the most ambitious approach, let's say, and it's kind of inviting me to transpose into the French defense after e4 now, which was somewhat surprising to me too, because I did not expect my opponent to play French, even if I chose e4 on the first move, so it seemed a little bit strange to me, and I decided, okay, let's just check what he's got. And on top of that, when I transposed into the French, I chose the variation that I have not yet played ever in any rated game, which was the bishop d3 line. It's not the most common one, it's not the one that guarantees white any kind of opening advantage, but since my opponent wanted to fool me with his opening choice, I decided to fool him with my reply, and I thought that it worked quite okay. Yet again, as in one of the previous videos, I told you guys that I can, shuffle around with my choices against many openings, thanks to the fact that I have a lot of students choosing different lines, and it was the same case in here. I have not played this line ever, but I worked on this with some of the students. So yeah, what's the idea behind bishop d3? The point is that after takes, knight f6, I want to keep the bishop. I go back with it free. So because I've lost those tempos, I cannot be any better, but at least this bishop is kind of a powerful one, and I will always play against this bad one who is stopped there, is made to be protect the pawn and nothing else. So that's generally the idea, but because I've wasted so many tempos, black should be direct, dynamic, and should go for either c5 or e5 breakthrough in the center, trying to open up the position, solve the development issues, and make the position equal. In the game, my opponent went for this option of e5, so he chose bishop d6, knight d7, castles, and then e5. All of the moves that followed up were kind of natural, and at this point, for the first time, I need to choose what to do. I knew that the e5 idea exists. In fact, I am telling you guys that I, worked on French with some students. Apparently, on this specific variation, I worked with black pieces, funnily enough, and I knew what white should not do, because I remembered from those preparations with the student that bishop g5 is not that good of an option, because you need to be careful, because if, for example, black makes some usual move, and if you will reply with the same, after h6 you are already kind of in trouble, because you have to take and give up the bishop pair, because if you don't do that, after bishop h4, g5 happens, e4 happens, and all of a sudden this bishop that was supposed to be the great one is simply trapped. For those reasons, at this point, I knew what not to do. I didn't know what to do. So I had to spend some time, and I did have in mind this rook e8, e4 idea, but obviously rook is not yet there, so I said to myself, okay, let's develop the bishop but to e3, solidify the center, and only after rook e8 make a decision on what to do. And I kind of, made that decision before. I played knight g3. For a second, I thought that moving the knight there is not that great, because I wanted it to protect the d4 pawn. However, on g3 is also not that bad. I can remaneuver it more into the game in the future, so it seemed alright, and obviously, most importantly, I covered the e4 move. At the same time, opponent is kind of struggling to make any move, developing one as of now, because if you think about it, We have both castled, our knights are developed, dark squared bishops too, and this is it. This is my one and only advantage I have out of the opening. My bishop is fine and there, this bishop is yet to move and has no moves, right? So I believe at this point black has two choices, either to play c6 and then slowly but steadily try to finish development and somewhat, let's say, limit my bishop on f3, or he can try to release the tension in the center, but I felt like this should be good for me because he is the one wasting time on exchanges, not myself. Because, for example, you know, at this point, if I haven't found knight g3, maybe I would be the one to take and invite his piece into the center. Now it's the opposite version, so I am happy with that. My bishop is alright. And knight e5 happened as a natural follow-up, so my opponent released the tension, created a space for the knight, and is willing to maybe go for the bishop to finally be able to develop this one. Surprisingly though, it's not that easy for black to perform this specific exchange because I chose rook to e1 move, kind of even inviting such exchange, because the point is that if it happened, I would be still eyeing the pawn on b7, so it's not like the bishop on c8 is free to go anywhere. That's the first point. Another point is that if that bishop is not free to go, this rook is stuck. If this rook is stuck, it is unable to help any of those pieces. And the point is that the queen specifically is a little bit overloaded because I am eyeing up on the e8 and f6 pieces. So let's say opponent wastes some time. I can now try to take the knight. He cannot retake with the queen because rook is hanging, he has to go back. I can, for example, take, jump with knight to h5, hitting the pawn and the fork, or knight to d5 on the previous move, or I can do that already as of now, here or there. You know, this king is very, 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 very weak, and I can make use of that. So opponent is unable to really take on f3, inviting my queen into the game, so he has to go for some alternatives, and he found a little bit unusual one, but apparently quite okay. In my eyes though, bishop g4 should be the main, let's say, focus of my opponent to think about, as an attempt to indeed develop those exact bishops that are a problem to him. He chose different route. He wanted to save the bishop and played knight f to g4 with the idea that he wants to take and then jump with the other knight to e5. So effectively he's basically trying to jump with the knight here, kind of, and exchange this knight for this bishop. But it's a little bit too slow. I am very proud of the move I found because after knight f to g4 I decided to go knight b5, saying that not only am I now going for some bishop pair, but also this knight is actually putting pressure towards the pawns, and you would not think that this should be any target of any kind for white, let's say. But if we will just perform the exchanges that we thought about previously, so takes, knight e5, with very good queen c3 move, I am eyeing up on the knight, on the pawn, there are some pins, and also this pressure towards the c7 or d6 points are coming in handy, actually. So those were my ideas in here, and apparently, even though until this point my opponent played relatively fast and his play overall was logical, I have only a little bit of advantage. At this point he used nearly 40 minutes of his thinking time, trying to decide what to do, trying to evaluate those exchanges that he was firstly willing to do, now not so much anymore, and so on. And he did not find the best move computer-wise, let's say, engine-wise, but obviously it's kind of unhuman what computers suggest, because even though you are under pressure here, here, maybe there's here, everywhere basically, it's very tense position. Computer just says, all right, let's move back the bishop. I mean, yeah, not that easy to even consider such move, let's say, but it was indeed the best one. I'm not even that sure why is it the best one, because I'm only a human, right? So it does not make too much sense to me. And this just shows you that out of the nothing, basically, black's position was not that easy. My opponent, after this nearly 40 minutes thought process, he played a6, kind of saying, all right, just take my bishop, you know, let's make this position a little bit easier to play because complications in it are too much for me. So I said, all right, let's do it. I took the bishop. Taking with the queen is kind of out of question, because even though you would like to have your pawn structure intact, I can undermine this knight by playing h3, and if this one goes back, I can start exchanging on e5. And the problem also is in some variations with the king being weak on the 8th rank. So the least I can do is basically take, make a check. If the queen covers, I can take the pawn and maintain initiative. If the knight covers, I mean, I don't have to say much, right? This is just too powerful for white to not be winning fast. So that's that. For that reason, after knight d6, my opponent took with a pawn. And even though I said all the time that this is something that black is willing to do, I actually invited him to do that. I chose h3 move, pushing him towards the exchange and knight e5 with a tempo, because queen c3, yet again, even in this, let's say, circumstances, is very good placement for the queen, even though the knight is not yet not there anymore, and I'm not hitting, I don't know, c7 pawn or whatever. I'm still having this amazing pressure towards those points, and it's enough for me to claim kind of big initiative. And this is a very important position for black, for players of any kind. I gave this position plenty of times to my students already over the span of the last few months, because it's clear that white is better. So if you were black in this position, you have a decision to make whether or not you would like to maintain the pressure by playing f6, solidifying the knight, and saying that, okay, I'm going to do everything to keep the pawn intact and keep the material balance, but for some long-term strategical problems, because as you can tell, f6 is not the most desired move ever, with opening up of the light squares and the king and so on. Or would you rather give up the pawn, presumably on e5, to finish the development with some bishop e6, rook c8, dynamic moves, just giving up the e5 knight and pawn, right? So this is the dilemma. My opponent solved this dilemma, I guess, while thinking for nearly 40 minutes, because still in here he thought for quite a long time, and he decided objectively and practically well that he should play bishop e6. So yeah, that's why I've said it's a hard task to deal with as black, but indeed f6 would be far more worse than that. Long term, I am maintaining too much of a good position to not be squeezing the win out of the opponent and so on. So yeah, it's not that pleasant to play. And with, let's say, brave decision of giving up the pawn, at least black gets some playability. So I took on e5, he took back, I took, he played now f6, funnily enough, so all that talk of mine, kind of goes into a waste, but obviously that's not true. The reason behind it is that as of now, the difference is that I also exchanged my bishop for the knight on e5, and it's a huge difference, because without that exchange, indeed f6 would be very detrimental to the opponent's position. Now it's kind of alright, it makes the place for the bishop, and also there were some problems with knight h5 hitting the dark squares. So f6 actually in here is alright. So after f6 I went away with the queen, he played rook c8 attacking my pawn, I protected it. He played queen b6 attacking my other pawn, I protected it. So kind of not like forced variation, but logical one, and we got ourselves this position with one more pawn clearly for white, but still some work needs to be done. However, I would like to go back a few moves to this very point, because apparently after bishop e6 I was the one to spend nearly half an hour on this specific moment to take the pawn. And you may ask, okay, why did you do it? Why did you waste so much time? Well, the idea is that, as you can tell, in the game I just got the pawn and nothing happened, but there was a very critical line in here of rook c8 with a tempo to the queen, in between move. And if I will not change my approach in here, meaning that I will just, go away with the queen, allow black to take my pawn, rook c2 is incoming on the very end of this variation, and where is my pawn? Where is my advantage, right? So the question is, why didn't black play this? And this is once more one moment after the other that I give my students to evaluate, because apparently in here a very, very crucial line is that I can sack my queen. And this is something I thought about for nearly half an hour, because at this point I can play bishop takes g7, and after my queen is taken, I can take back the rook. So I have rook, knight, and a pawn for the queen. So materially speaking, I am alright, and positionally speaking, I am much better. Because in order for the queen to flourish, to show its potential in such imbalances, it needs to have clear target, presumably some pawn weaknesses. I have none. My pawn chain here and there is amazing. Everything is protecting each other. I can also tell the same about my king. Very, very good. So the queen, even though usually it's powerful, has not that much to do in this position. While I, on the other hand, have just weakened the king, so all the dark squares are screaming, let's say, with the weakness. I can jump to h5 with the knight, and I can do basically whatever. King is weak, pawn is weak, dark squares are weak. I can try to double the rooks on the e file, play on d and e files simultaneously, like plenty of choices. So this is something I wanted to evaluate very precisely. That's why I've spent so much time. That's why I eventually went for it anyway, because I evaluated that my position is great. And during my thought process, I guess, during this half an hour, my opponent kind of quickly realized that this is too dangerous for him. So after my bishop e5, he just simply took, as I've said, very fast. So yeah, and that's how we got ourselves into this position. And yeah, the scenario, the dynamic of the position changed quite a lot. And I have a clear advantage. I need to win the position, right? Funnily enough, already after one move further, I've made a blunder initially, because after bishop f7, I thought that, okay, my opponent is inviting me to exchange the rook, so let's do it, but on my terms. I will double up on the e file, and then if I'm taken, I will take his rook, right? Easy peasy. But after takes, since my rook has moved, I mean, bishop on a2 can happen, right? Taking my pawn. And I was like, wow, I did all of that in the middle game phase to claim the pawn advantage, just to blunder it with like one move. Thankfully though, it's not working for black, because for this pawn, I would get so much counterplay and initiative. I would play rook e7, I would play knight f5, hitting the pawn. Basically all that black can and has to do is to play desperate moves like this. So I am much better, in the terms of the pressure, activity, like safety, like everything. So yes, I don't have the pawn advantage anymore, but I, let's say, transposed it into plenty of other, maybe even more important factors. So thankfully I did not blunder the pawn in the end anyway. My opponent for those reasons chose the other move, which was rook e8, so I happily obliged to the exchange, because at this point I knew that after, well, I gave a check too, asking the king where does it want to go. He went into the center because he does not want to be stuck in the corner. I played b4 and I thought to myself, all right, I should be winning, perhaps even kind of easily, because there is this, rule, general one, saying that knights cooperate better with the queens, while bishops should cooperate better with the rooks. But there are no rooks on the board, right? There is only the queen. So I thought, okay, I have one more pawn, majority on the queen side, so it should be easier to create some outside passed pawn there. The black king is not that great, should be alright, okay position to win. Little did I know it was not that easy as I initially thought. Maybe even I kind of got too, let's say, not excited, but like relaxed about this position, because still, as I've said previously, there is work to be done, and I didn't really put in the effort to play it the best, the most precise way. My opponent in here decided to try to activate the queen, logically. I decided to do the very same with my knight. I jumped to f5. After queen e5 though, I already have a choice to make. Do I want to go back to e3, block the e-file from entering the queen, and then try to find better spot for the knight, because e3 is not the best spot in the world? Or should I just go knight d4, centralizing the knight, but not only that, I want to scare my opponent with some jumps to e6, some checks, some forks, some discovery attacks, and so on. But yeah, it's only looking scary. It's not doing that much. And my opponent saw through this and he just gave a check and took the pawn. Where is my pawn? I mean, not there anymore apparently. So yeah, knight e3 would be much better choice. Also, practically speaking, I kind of worked on this. Do not give the opponent any kind of counterplay. And I gave him that. I gave him the counterplay, I gave him the hope. I shouldn't have done that. I should have played this move and be, slowly but steadily going towards the winning stages. Anyway, knight d4 unfortunately happened, check, king h2, take. The point is that after knight e6, my opponent can just simply go up the board, and after knight g7, knight is kind of stuck there, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal because queen can always help it get out. But after bishop c6, with the pressure towards the g2 pawn, I kind of have too much to think about. Like, should I go for some checks? Should I go for the full defensive mode? Will I be ever able to go back with the knight? And so on. And simply objectively, it's not working that way or the other. For those reasons, in here I had to kind of change my plans, and I chose queen c7 move in order to hit the pawn, now threaten with checkmate in 2, and also cover the diagonal so that my king is much safer from some kind of the perpetuals. My opponent correctly though chose queen e1 move so that it covers the e6 entry point, kind of threatens with the queen e5 exchange, and if I take the pawn on b7 as I did, he gives a check anyway. And if I go down with the king, he goes back, we go back, it's perpetualized. So in order to avoid that, I had to play g3, and this is the move that normally you don't want to play if you are playing for a win in the queen's endgame with the king being there, because you have opened second and first rank completely, and perpetuals are there all day long. And already at this point I believe queen e1 was the choice of the opponent that maybe would not like kill the game on the spot in terms of my winning chances, but would make it much harder, because if I would be saying, all right, my king will survive, I will take the pawn, cover the f1 square, so that after queen f2, king h1, there is no such move. First of all, I need to be scared about some checkmate threats, like this maneuver, for example, and I'm stuck, right? Second of all, I need to be scared about this move, taking the pawn, attacking two others, still maintaining some perpetual possibilities. So all in all, the chances for a win were very slim in that scenario. And yeah, thankfully my opponent did not go for it. He played h5 move, also somewhat, let's say, logical, trying to make use of this pin that has just come into existence. However, it allowed me to, as of now, block the h4 move, give my king a little bit of space. Not that it's that relevant, because if the queen would go there anyway, I mean, the variations don't change that much. It's still equal position. But after g5, I can take, and now activate my queen somehow, trying to finally make my king safer, make use of those pawns, and win the game, because h4 is not yet on the board. So I did just that. I took queen a6, h4, and now I had a critical choice to make. Even though we are close to the time control, I still have enough time to calculate, so I cannot make an excuse of being low on time and saying that, all right, I did not calculate something. Because what are those choices? Either I will go for some activity-based move, which is queen h6 check, with all kinds of checks and traps willing to go into the position that would allow me to exchange the queens, because without the queens on the board, it's obvious win for me. I have just simply too many pawns. Or I go for the more of a, let's say, passive route, and I just choose queen d3, solidifying g3 pawn, not allowing the black queen to enter through any kind of space and place, and then just simply try to, push my queenside pawns to a win. This was objectively better choice. In here, yet again, black is not allowed enough counterplay to really surprise me and make my life tough, so this should be the way to go. But I went for the direct approach of queen h6 check, and I am winning in every variations after every move but one for the future moves. So basically, opponent is relying on some only moves, but they are kind of easy to spot. So it's not about, oh, only move. It's also about the difficulty of spotting those. And there was no difficulty of that kind, because my opponent obviously will not go here to allow me my queen trade. Obviously will not go here allowing me to give a check, and then here yet again allowing me the queen trade. He will just simply go to e7. All right, I continue checking. I gave a check in here. Obviously, my opponent will not play here, allowing me to fork and win the queen. Obviously, he will not... okay, actually, he does not have that many other choices. But okay, let's say he went back. I go here. He goes here. I go there, right? So it's not... he is not making those moves. He will just, happily go to the safety. Now I chose queen d3, so you may argue, okay, so what's that big of a deal? Queen d3 is on the board as it would be in the here. But apparently, king will be useful to block my pawns, surprisingly. I did not expect it whatsoever. And also, I've calculated until this point, and I knew that yet again, at this point, there is only one move for black to not allow me to trade. Because, for example, if he goes back trying to repeat the moves, I have queen e3. Very tricky move, because if my queen is taken, then I fork that one and I'm winning, exactly as I wanted. So he cannot play that. He cannot play that because of the pin and the fork, right? What else can he not play? I mean, he has to do something. So like king c8 would be queen f5, but obviously he will play king c7. It's not that big of a mystery to find that move. And after my next move, which was b5, king b6, we actually have reached the time control. So my opponent, who was struggling with time, have no more struggles, let's say. And on top of that, this king, as I've said, is blocking my pawns quite effectively. Thanks to the control over the dark squares of the black queen, the king is not suffering there. I don't have that clear route to give some few more checks and make use of them or anything. So those are my problems. And on top of that, this pin is kind of annoying. My queen got passive. My king is... it's kind of risky to play with it anywhere like near the center or something. So yeah, it was not that clear objectively. However, funnily enough, I was so, I don't know, proud of myself about this game or something, or so confident about having the winning chances, that even though objectively computer says for the past few moves that it's not winning position, maybe, or I should say most probably, it should be a drawn game, I was like full of confidence, 98% that I am winning this game. So it just shows you two things maybe. Evaluating such position is a tough task, and I didn't manage to do it properly, first thing. Second thing is being confident pays off, because I was so confident, making the move, standing up, going around the playing hall, having the time, having the blast, that my opponent was thinking and thinking, trying to figure out the way of how to survive, and he just kind of couldn't do it. So I don't know, maybe my confidence played some role in it. At least that's what I want to tell myself. Yeah, that's the dynamic, let's say. Anyway, let's go back into chess. I chose a4 move, solidifying the b5 pawn, which was attacked. My opponent, as of now, chose g4. Kind of a natural move because it opens up the 5th rank too. Maybe I will have to deal with h3 pawn pushes, trying to make this h pawn a passer and so on. I have decided to not be afraid of the ghosts and play knight f5, because after h3, once more I would be able to exchange the queens, so h3 is not a possibility now, and if my opponent takes on g3, I will happily take back. Yet again, computer does not approve. During those few moves that you saw, and I am explaining them as they would be logical, the blunder is on the blunder for both sides. I don't know why to this day, unfortunately, so I cannot help you with that. But yeah, I guess it might have something to do with the fact that my knight got passive too, unfortunately, and it's black to move, so I am not on time to deliver this queen d4 check. Queen a5 happened, hitting my pawn, and once I will lose that one, this one is falling too, and my position will no longer be that great. So I had to play queen c4, and still in here I felt confident, and indeed maybe it was a right approach, because not only did I protect my pawn on g4, but I also attacked opponent's pawn on g4. This knight, I knew the yet another generic and general rule that the knight is an amazing defender of the king. I felt like it too in here. Knight is protecting this check, that check, so queen is unable to check me in any, let's say, effective way. Queen h8, I will just go here or there and I'm fine. So like I felt all right, right? Computer for some reason says that queen e7 is the only move for a draw. I don't know why exactly, to be honest. I would perhaps be concerned about taking the pawn immediately, because I knew that if the queen enters this situation, or maybe with some checks, and from that way I might lose the pawns. But if I will not allow it and play some other move, maybe knight e4, activating the knight yet again, although then I maybe allow this. Yeah, I mean, maybe this queen e4 move has some depth in it anyway, since the computer suggested. But yeah, human-wise, it was not that easy to play it and to evaluate it as the only one saving the game, I guess. My opponent chose, let's say, human way of playing, which was bishop d7, and it was not good, thankfully. I chose in here king g2, and I cannot really recall the variation, and if I even calculated one, after queen b4, king b6, queen d4. I mean, I have just wanted that, alright? For the all time, like, why haven't I played this? Perhaps I was only calculating until this point. I said to myself, okay, my king, opponent's king will take my pawns, but in here I have a winning move of d7. If he takes, I push. If he covers, I push. If he attacks, I push. If he takes, I push. So push, 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 because king taking the pawn would make one step too far away from the pawns, and the bishop itself cannot deal with two pawns separate from each other. So this would be it. But I guess this I did not calculate properly. I just went with king g2, which was, I guess, fine too. Yet again, I don't have any checks and I'm waiting for anything for my opponent to do. He chose queen d6 move, after which he gave me a tempo to activate my knight, yet again not allowing any check. And after queen f8, with the attempt of checking me, here I found knight d2. I was actually finally proud of myself that I found this move, because I am not only covering the check, but at the same time I'm willing to go with knight b5 check, king b6, a5 check, start pushing those pawns with tempos, with checks, and be winning most likely. And some queen a8 check does not do much. I can perhaps even go to f2 or in the center, or to g1, or cover the check and go back if I don't like it and think about other stuff. So yeah, plenty of choices, I would say. My opponent, after knight d2, played queen f5. I was not sure what was that about exactly. Already in here, computer suggests I have some mates in 20 something moves. Obviously I did not calculate them. I played what I wanted to, as I've said to you guys. So I chose knight b3 check, queen d4 check, and queen c5 check. Finally exchanging those queens. I am hitting the bishop, so it has to move. He moved, I went towards the pawn, king b6, and I thought to myself, wait, is this so easily winning? Because if I play knight b3 as I would like to do, and then I would like to play this, solidifying the pawn, and then choosing either this one or the other to push, now I am not on time to do that. So what about bishop f7? I have to go away with the knight. I'm leaving the c5 square open. King is entering. Once more, it's the question of time. Am I on time to promote the pawns and so on? So in the time trouble, kind of, I did not have that little time, but anyway, I did not calculate it fully, and I found another idea for myself, which was to play knight d3 counterintuitively, because I am indeed allowing the queen to go there, but after king a5 happened, I have knight b2, and instead of having the knight on the light square under the attack of the bishop, I have it on the dark square, and the knight protects the pawn protects the pawn protects the square too, so the opponent's king is unable to enter, and it gives me time to perhaps take the pawn. If opponent is not allowing me to take the pawn and plays bishop d7, I have only one winning move, only one. Because if I will not take my chance as of now, I have no way to progress. Those pawns are blocked, this knight is stuck, king is kind of glued to the pawn. Only piece that is, let's say, mobile and can move is pawn on c4, and if I don't play with it now, I will not play with it ever. Why? Because I need to make use of the beautiful chess geometry and some knight forks that we all love, which is that after c4 I am allowing the king to enter to b4 square. But after that happens, I have once more one and only move to win, which is knight d3 check, with the point that whichever pawn will be taken, I have the fork to the bishop and the king, either here or here. So exemplary variation would be king c4, knight e5, king b4, knight d7, king a4, a6, I am too fast. And in the other way around, it's even easier, I guess, or maybe kind of the same. Once more b6 and I'm winning. And in order to play that, I actually had to calculate it from here. So I disliked knight b3 variation so much because of the bishop g7, f7 possibility that I was not even able to calculate everything in here till the end. So I chose knight d3, and then I've calculated that after this, this and that, protecting the pawn, I can play c4 and then rely on those forks and tricks to win the game. So in the end, it turned out indeed to not be so easy position to transpose into a winning one, but thankfully I've calculated everything well enough to not give away the advantage at any point. My opponent saw those tricks and he went away with the bishop, but once he did that, I can just simply push the pawn once more, and I don't care that king is trying to attack the pawn and then might go here and there, because if it would happen indeed, I would just, push the pawns. King would be so far away from them that it would be enough for me to win it. So exemplary variation I can give you like, okay, king c3, misclick, I wanted to go b3, but it does not change that much. I can choose whatever I want. I can even play like this and like this, like this, like that, or simpler here, 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 whatever. Winning is obvious. So if that's so obvious, my opponent did not allow it yet. King c5 happened, I gave a check, king b6 happened, and you can tell that it's pretty significant difference that as of now I have beautiful pawn chain, and this pawn is actually kind of untouchable, because at any given point, if my opponent would like to go for it, I would just start perhaps pushing the b and c pawns, and that's that. My opponent, I chose knight e5 move, king a5, knight d7, cutting even the king away from the b6 square, and after my opponent took the pawn, this is exactly what I expected and told you guys would happen. King takes my pawn, I go with the b pawn, I'm winning the game. My opponent resigned on move 61, so a long game. Not so correct one, to be honest, especially in the endgame phase, but we are not engines, and therefore I would say that this excuse is enough to say that both sides tried their best. Me, myself to win the game, opponent to save it, so I would say that the fight was a very good one, and second win in a row against high-rated opponent, very experienced and highly respected by myself opponent. So yeah, very good momentum going on, especially since yet again we as a team have reached the stage of the tournament in which every point, even the small one, matters. So I was quite happy to be able to give some wins for my team, and yeah, happy with the opening choice, happy with the calculation in the middle game, not so happy about the technique in the end game, just because the stockfish and engines exist. Otherwise I would be happy too. So overall, good result, and yeah, couldn't wait for the last 2 rounds of the tournament, and I hope you can't wait either. Therefore, I will not make this video any longer. I will finish it in here. I would like to invite you tomorrow for the analysis of the next round, and as of this one, thank you all for watching. We'll see each other. Bye bye.